Welcome to the Raw Spotlight podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders in the B2B space and share their unique stories. Let's get started with the show.
Welcome to the Raw Spotlight. She's Got Hustle. This podcast series features fearless women transforming business and life through perseverance, growth, and a healthy dose of hustle. I'm your host, Emily Al, co-founder of Ready Outwork. As a designer, marketer, and entrepreneur, I'm excited to share the inspiring stories of women making a difference. Each episode, I spotlight women hustlers from B2B businesses, niche markets, major brands, local ventures, and public organizations. My guests share their journeys, how they navigate challenges, pursue growth, and balance passion with purpose. In our last episode, I spoke to Amy Lowe from State Farm, another amazing guest from Washington State. She talked about how she's building stronger communities and better customer experiences by leading with empathy and service. If you missed it, please be sure to check it out. It was an inspiring conversation. But now let's get comfortable, settle in, and let's get ready to be inspired. But before we start, I do have a sponsor message. This episode was brought to you by Ready Outwork, a website-first digital marketing agency dedicated to driving long-term growth for your business. At Ready Outwork, we believe your website is the foundation of your digital footprint. That is why we lead with our proven 7-step website blueprint, a strategic process designed to deliver high-performing lead-generating websites. If you want to hear the full breakdown, check out our dedicated episode on the 7-step website blueprint. But visit readyoutwork.com to see how we can help your organization unlock its full digital potential. Okay, today's guest is Liz Frost, a founder of Intentional Spaces Psychotherapy, a Seattle-based virtual therapy practice that serves clients throughout Washington State. Liz is a licensed clinical social worker with background in medical biochemistry and a master's in social work. With over 10 years of experience, she focuses on trauma-informed therapy, especially for people dealing with complex trauma, religious trauma, and exploring queer identity. As a queer woman, she grew up in the Bible Belt with ties to the LDS Church. She brings both personal insight and professional expertise to her work. At Intentional Spaces, she's created a supportive, growth-focused space where clients can reconnect with themselves and build lives that feel authentic and aligned. Liz, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, to have this time to chat with you. I want to learn a little bit about your journey. You began your journey in biochemistry and then transformed into psychotherapy. How has your scientific background informed you in the way to run like the business that you have today?
Yeah, I think it's essential for me as a human and essential for me as a founder. So I always say that my biggest lesson in my biochem degree was how to fail well. I was a ballerina for 19 years before that, and I was doing well. That's why I did it for 19 years. And so I don't think I really learned how to fail, and don't think I really learned how to learn something and not have done it since I was 2 years old. And so in my undergrad degree, I learned lots of things about science and math and all of this. And you have to be really bad at those things before you can be good at them. And that is true with most of business, most of mental health, most of life. And so I think fundamentally that's something that I took with me from my undergrad to the rest of my life. I think there are also some topical skills. I have more information about medication. I have more information about how different systems of medicine are working because I was in that field for so long. And I think there's been a really interesting kind of shift in me personally from wanting to use the medicine and to wanting to be the medicine in both business and in therapy. It's been really neat to see myself kind of grow to be the person that I am now, because I look back and I think, wow, I don't use this degree that I spent 4 years slaving for. Why did I do that? Sat for the MCAT, was doing all this stuff for medical school. And I look back and I think, wow, that actually did really transform and make me into the person that I am, make me into the human that I am. And I think there was so many really incredible skills that I had to learn that I couldn't have learned any other way than going through something really challenging, a really high intensity program like that. And I think I also learned how to say no to something that you've worked really hard to get. I had a whole existential crisis at the ripe old age of 21. And I was like, I'm not going to medical school. What am I going to do? And I really didn't want to say no. I really didn't want to not use my degree because I put so much blood, sweat, and tears in it. And so I think distilling down these lessons of like how to fail really well, how to work really hard at something, how to move away from something that's not for you carries me throughout a lot of my life and are certainly foundational blocks for like how I run a company now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. How to fail really well. Yeah, I think
Hmm.
yeah, most leaders, business owners, yeah, we have to
Yeah,
fail many. Yeah, like
totally.
yeah, it's never an easy path to get to where we're gonna get to. Yeah.
No, and succeeding you know, is requires a lot of failure. And so in order to be able to succeed well, you have to be able to fail really, really well.
Right, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your clients, right? Your clients are often high performing professionals carrying like maybe hidden trauma.
Hmm.
What should organizations understand about the impact of unresolved trauma on leadership, productivity, and like workplace dynamics?
Hmm. Yeah. There is so much impact on all of those things. I mean, there's impact on across your life in unresolved trauma. Oftentimes, when people are high functioning, it's because they're really anxious or because they're very afraid. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of losing something. They're afraid that they'll like lose their sparkle if they treat their anxiety. And I think sometimes workplaces kind of capitalize on that. Like, oh, this person is really high performing and they're checking in a lot and they're really excited about this project. Yes, that can be true. And also, it might be that they're very afraid. And that only goes so far. So you can only like stretch someone's anxiety. You can only stretch someone's trauma response so far before they're going to break. And so ultimately, if you're building sustainability in a company, I would encourage people to check in authentically and create a safe space for people to say they're not doing well and then be able to actually support them. So I've seen a lot of clients in really high performing industries, very high paying jobs, not
Mhm.
feel safe to say that they're not doing well because, I mean, fundamentally, they're replaceable and they don't want to be replaced by telling someone that they're struggling. And if
Mhm.
you're invested in your company, if you're invested in your people, really having a space to catch them, whether that be mental health professionals or an EAP program or like an in-house therapist, or even just referrals with a good insurance network, you can say, hey, here, take this time off. We are investing in you. We are really giving you the tools to be able to support yourself. You'll have better outcomes in workflow. You'll have better outcomes in productivity because you can only encourage someone to get so good when they're scared. And I think in unresolved trauma and in high performing people, it's usually really isolating too. Because you've
Mhm.
gotten to this place and now you have to act like everything's okay, to act like you really have it together. Because if you don't have it together, what happens? And this happens especially for queer people or women because the glass ceiling is so much lower. And so we've gotten to this place and we're like, okay, competing against these people that I'm like systemically disadvantaged against, how can I show that I am better and stronger and like more able to go through these things? And I think it's recognizing that it's not going to be as easy for everyone as it might be for your straight white male counterpart. And chances are they're also probably still suffering. And so,
Mhm.
really being aware of what those intersectionalities look like and providing a space for people to step forward and not being retributive. So, not acting out of, anger or things like that as they're requesting time off or as they're requesting support. Because if you're going to have a sustainable environment, you have to also have the safety for there to be sustainability. And that's really a workplace culture issue.
Yeah, so you mentioned safe space, right?
Mhm.
As a leader, how do you lead with authority, but yet still, can you give us an example how to lead with authority, but yet still
Mhm.
providing that safe space for people that you work with or manage?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell all of the people that I manage, all the people at the company, that I'm in this with you. I'm invested in your career because your career is also my career. So we are in this team together and really making it clear that I want them to succeed, that we both have to succeed. They have to succeed for me to succeed. Like it's not different, right? And I'm not trying to exploit them for the sake of myself and making sure that if they come to me and say, hey, I need to take a pause, I can't take any more clients, I'm moving, I'm really burnt out right now, I need a month. I say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Certainly. Like, we have a minimum caseload, we have a minimum intake, but let's work with you to figure out what this looks like. And I want to be here to support you. And let's make sure that our goals ultimately are aligned and be clear about what I need in the interim. So, okay, we need, X amount of time for X amount of time off. And then after you get back, here's the plan. And being clear and authoritative about what those plans mean for the business structure and for the integrity of the business while still saying, I want to support you. I want to find a middle ground here. Let's have an open conversation. And in order to do that, we have to both come to the table with what we need. So if they say, I need 3 months off, and I say, okay, I hear that. What if we do 1 month off and then you like gradually get back into your caseload after that? We're like on the same team working for the same goal, which is sustainability for them. And I think it's really about both people being flexible and having the rapport there to be able to know that your employees trust you and that you do have their best interest at heart.
Yeah, I love that sustainability. Yeah. Love that example. So your practice is built on values like compassion and clarity.
Mm-hmm.
How do those values show up in the way you lead your team and work with your clients?
Yeah. So I think client work is a little bit different than working with the team because client work is, focused and clinical and is very one-on-one and is also self-contained in that one-on-one hour space that we have
Mhm.
together. So I would say to speak to the kind of team leadership of compassion and clarity, I try to be really transparent about everything. So if there's something that's moving in the company, if we're shifting, if we're hiring, if we're whatever, we have a staff meeting that we have an all staff every Monday. And so I say, hey, here are the updates that we're going through. Here's what's happening. Here's what you can expect next. Here's how this might change what you're hearing. Here's this new thing we're implementing so that they can feel really on board and really part of the team. And so being really transparent and very clear about what that looks like. I also think clarity is kindness. So being really clear about the expectations, being really clear about what I need from them so that they can feel like they're succeeding and being very clear when they are and when they're not. So if they're doing something really great, we say, hey, this is a shout out. This is great. And if they're not meeting a standard, saying, hey, you're not quite meeting this. What's up? I know you can. I know I care about you. Like, what's happening? Let's figure this out together. And I think it's also really useful to have a lens of compassion in both of these. And I think that's like a central part of our practice of like therapy in general, to know that you're speaking to a human ultimately. Like, yes, these are employees. Yes, these are clients. Yes, these are
Mhm.
other therapists, but they're human. And so if someone's moving, if someone's grandmother died, if someone is like, having a hard day and they just can't find the document they need, like just knowing that because I'm a human, they're a human. And at the center of it, we are using our humanity to heal other people. And that doesn't just extend to our clients, that extends to our employees too. I think especially in like as you're growing and in bigger companies, it's easy to see that it's a number, it's a person, like it's just another issue to deal with. And I try to really stray away from that mindset because all of them are individuals that are trusting me with their livelihood and really centering back on the idea that I owe them compassion because we are working together for this common goal. And in order to be compassionate, I have to be clear and I have to be direct. And I also have to see them as very human ultimately. And I would expect the same from them.
Mhm. Yeah. So I assume your team is also virtual as well, since
Mhm.
your business is virtual based. How do you build culture with your team when it's virtual? And how is that different than being in person?
Oh, certainly. This is like one of my favorite questions because this was one of like the cruxes of creating intentional spaces was I wanted a virtual community that was flexible, that was still also a community. So
Mhm.
in person in the hospitals, there's this like kind of trauma bond around, okay, we are all doing something really hard. We know that and we are together. We're like talking about it in the break room. We're like seeing each other in the hallway. We're like knocking on each other's doors when they're open. And you can't do that virtually. And so we have a lot of channels of communication. We have Slack, we have email, we have like secure texting, we have messaging on our like EHR platform. We have all of these things. And I make sure that all of those are accessible between the peers and also for me. So if they're messaging me and they're like, hey, I'm overwhelmed at this thing, can you help me? I make sure I respond and I'm there. So it's kind of like knocking on a door. If they're like, hey, can we meet for a phone call? I make sure I'm available to do that. And we also have in person meetings occasionally. We had our last one about 5 weeks ago, and where we bring them all into Seattle and we like rent a space, we do a little PowerPoint, we take them out to dinner, we like hang out together. So there is some face to face that you can put this like person in the corporeal form and not just virtually. We also have really clear and dedicated like spaces for like clinical resources or for sharing highlights of the week. We have a meeting, an all staff meeting every Monday that we start with rocks and rubies. So, what is the best and worst part of your week? And so, we really try to center that humanity and bring in like connecting, even if in small ways, to all of the spaces that we share together. And then we have really structured ways of sharing those spaces so that if people want, a 5 minute phone call or if they want to reach out about their weekend, it's a space to do that. And then we also support that. Like I do that too. I lead by example. So I'll like send a picture of my dog, who I joke is the mascot of intentional spaces, or send a resource about a fun thing in a park that I'm doing this weekend if somebody wants to come. And so really being clear about the fact that like we're a team and again, centering that humanity of all of us there and leaving the door virtually open as much as we can.
Yeah, I like that. I can already sense the energy that you have in those spaces already.
Thank you.
So earlier you kind of mentioned gave an example of like if someone's experiencing burnt out. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
burnt out is a big issue in a lot of industries right now.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned about building a workplace that supports mental health and avoiding that burnout?
Yeah, I think I would say I've learned this in trial by fire with my own burnout and like being in spaces where I was rather burnt out and realizing that I was quite sad about it. I spent
Mhm.
like a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort to be here and to be a therapist. It's, at least 8 years of schooling. And so you really get to this place and then you're like, wow, I love this work and I just fundamentally can't do it. And you look at it and you say, why can't I do this? What is it about this structure that doesn't feel like it's fulfilling to me? What is it about it that's not giving me the excitement that it used to? And for me, part of that was the caseload was way too high. I just couldn't manage all the people. And I didn't feel like I was actually making an impact on the clients that I was seeing because I just had too many. And the other
Mhm.
part of it was that I felt pretty isolated and I wasn't able to do the work that I loved. I have a pretty specific niche, like you mentioned, like the intersection of religious trauma and cults and queer identity. And that's just really a specific population. And so I didn't have the caseload that I wanted. And I also had a ton of people, and the people were doing rather badly at the hospital because they're just acute folks. And so
Mhm.
realizing that that didn't feel sustainable for me because it wasn't aligned with feeling like there were successes. I just felt like I had so many more things that were insurmountable, like systemic things. Like there wasn't housing, there wasn't food. And how can I fix that in one person? And so I really encourage clinicians to build a caseload and a schedule around what they actually want. So we do really individualized, specialized marketing for each person that comes onto the team so that we can build the caseload that feels aligned with them. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from our team that that's been really fulfilling for them, that they have the clients they like. They actually look forward to every person, that they're building the people that they want to see. And I think that's a huge aspect of burnout because you're sharing your personhood with someone, you're sharing your life and your humanity and your emotional capacity. And if you don't feel like that person is a good fit, then on both ends, that's not going to be a great idea. And that's going to lead to burnout with the clinician. We're also really clear about, hey, how are you self caring? How are you setting boundaries? Hey, I noticed that you don't have a lunch on this day. Why? Or like, what's happening here? Like, let's make sure that we like nip this in the bud before it gets to the place where you're actually burnt out. And being super proactive about those things and creating a culture where they're allowed to ask for that and
Mhm.
say, hey, I need to take a break. Hey, I don't like this client. Hey, I'm not feeling this vibe. Can we transfer them somewhere else? And making sure that that's like prioritized in all of our workflows.
Right. Right. I know like we might have teammates or anyone that work for us feeling burned out. We might step in
Mm-hmm.
to help them, but myself and a lot of my listeners, they are also founders of their own company.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give them, right? Because they're the founder.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah, navigating burnout as a founder is hard because there are so many things you can do. And it seems like once you do them, there's just like double the amount that you could still do. And I think that can be really exhausting. So I remember that I am a human first and I am a founder and a therapist second. So yesterday is a good example of this. I happened to have like a 3 hour break in the middle of the day and I was like, okay, I can do this thing, I can do this thing, I can get this done, whatever. And then looked outside and I was like, oh, there's not a cloud in the sky. Like, wow, what if I just took a walk? Like, what really needs to get done right now? Like, what if I just took a walk? And I think there's this internal voice in me and probably in a lot of us that says, well, you're not being successful enough. Somebody is doing that work right now while you're taking a walk, and you're going to fall behind and they're going to now beat you and you're going to be less successful because of it. And that may be true, but at what cost? At the cost of my happiness? Like, what am I doing all this for if not to have autonomy over my time, if not to have happiness ultimately? And so I think really listening to myself when I'm starting to feel that pull of like, I am overwhelmed, I am drowning, there's too many things, and just taking space and getting some distance and getting some perspective. And I think it's also useful for me to prioritize, which sounds so simple, but I think so many of us are just not good at it. Or like
Yeah.
everything feels just really important. And so sometimes I just write down every single thing I can think of that I have to do. And I go through and I color code them. And I'm like, okay, what is important? What is time sensitive? What do I have to do now? What can wait? And then I kind of organize them. And then I make a list of like how I'm going to approach them so that I know what my time looks like and how much time I can actually have autonomy over and how much I have to do things. And that makes me feel like I have more control over my daily life. And I think that feels a lot better than just thinking like I have 70 things to do and it's only me who's going to do them. And if I don't, I'm going to fail.
Yeah, I like that advice because I think a lot of times we overload ourselves. We think everything is a
Mm-hmm.
priority and we have to get to
Mm-hmm.
everything, and that's the burden that we hold on our shoulders. So that's great
Totally.
advice to prioritize, to really look at what really makes sense at the moment. Love that.
Yeah. I have
Yeah.
like a little sticky note on my desk that says, is it an emergency or are you just anxious? And every time I start to feel that about a task, I'm like, is it an emergency or are you just anxious?
Okay, so you help people go through big changes in their life,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be leaving toxic spaces, questioning their beliefs, or exploring
Mm-hmm.
their identity, right? How can leaders support them, as team members going through similar changes while still building that strong team, strong culture, and then being
Mm-hmm.
inclusive of their teams?
Yeah, I think it has to start with wanting to grow with them, wanting to build that with them, and like really genuinely searching inside yourself. Do you want to grow with this person? Are they still going to be a good fit in your team? How is this going to change the dynamic of your team? Like I'm thinking of someone that were to get divorced. If you have every other person on your team is married with kids, maybe that's a conversation to have with them and say, hey, we really love you, really care about you. This might feel a little ostracizing, but like we're going to do our best to include you in all of those things and being really intentional about how they might show up differently with these transitions. I'm thinking about gender transitions too, like being really clear about how they might show up differently and being clear about what your biases might look like so that you can still continue to include them and really wanting to do that work because that is our work to do as leaders, making an inclusive environment. And I think it's also about having that open door again to say, okay, how is your life changing? Okay, if you're now a single parent, what does that look like for pickup? How can we be flexible? How can we work with you? What does this mean? And I think I can probably speak for a lot of us whenever we get really set on like, this is the way someone functions, this is the way that they do it. I have structured the rest of the things around them doing this thing in this way. And unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. As much as it's frustrating and annoying and challenging, we have to be flexible with them. And so I think part of what we take on as founders is the responsibility to hold what other people can't. So maybe they can't work late on Tuesdays like they used to because now they have to pick up their kids. Okay, that's fine. We, for an interim, can work late on Tuesdays so that we can help them feel supported until they can either move back into that or we can find someone else to do it. And I think it's all about kind of shuffling these priorities to make sure that the person that's going through the transition feels prioritized because they ultimately are the one experiencing this trauma or this shift or whatever. And it's our job to make that as easy as we can for them while still being clear and considerate about the goals and the necessities for the company. And again, I think clarity is kindness. So if they're not meeting those goals or if these life transitions have in some way impeded it, just having a conversation about it, remembering that you're on the same team and that you're really trying to work towards being the best you can for this company.
Right, right. That makes sense. Yeah. So we talked about a lot about safe space,
Mm-hmm.
but you also, through other means, you talked about brave spaces.
Mm-hmm.
How can leaders bring that idea into their team culture and workspace?
Yeah, this is something that I love that we can't promise a safe space, but we can promise a brave space. We, as a therapeutic collective, can't even promise a safe space because we're humans and we're going to do things that aren't safe sometimes. And that sucks. And that's just the plight of being human. So I think a brave space, the way I differentiate it in my mind, the way I differentiate it in intentional spaces, is that a safe space it ensures that you will never get hurt. That's just never going to be true in anything. Like HR might want that to be true, and we try to make it true, and that's just not the case. That's why HR exists, right? And so
Right.
Brave Space says that when you are hurt, you can come forward. You can know that there won't be retaliation. You can know that we as leadership are supporting you, and you can know that we as leadership are believing you. So if someone submits a claim and says that someone has bullied them or someone's enacting a racist act against them or whatever, we will investigate it. We will take it seriously. We will take your bravery as truth. And we'll
Mhm.
say, okay, yeah, we trust you, we support you, and we support your bravery in saying that. Or in my case, if someone feels unsafe with a client, if they don't feel like it's a good fit, if they feel overwhelmed, it's a brave thing to say that you can't work with someone and that you're not a good fit anymore. And so we say, okay, yeah, that's brave. We will take that and we will do what we need to do to make moves to make you safe again. And I think in terms of other practices or other businesses, I would encourage people to really reflect on how they're responding to things that might be challenging personally, challenging to the company. Like we all would think we founded a great company with a great culture. And that's probably largely true, but it's not entirely true. And making sure that the bravery of someone is really honored and seen, because if it's not honored and seen, then you're going to create less safety because people are going to stop coming forward and you're ultimately not going to have the culture that you want.
Yeah. And I am curious, therapy, I wouldn't say it's new, but it's definitely uh, has had a stigma, right?
Mm-hmm.
In many years previously. How do we navigate through that in work, right? And to remove that stigma, to know that this is something that's it's okay to go through.
Yeah, I think that's a multi-year approach. It's like long-term planning. I think it starts with really being transparent about the options for mental health and being clear that you support mental health. So the stigma often comes because someone might be, having a panic attack and they don't have a private cubicle to do that in. So everybody's like seeing them cry in the middle of the office, right? Or if they're crying and someone walks by and they're like, suck it up, you have a meeting in 30 minutes. And so I think it's about being like very clear about the safe spaces that you create or the containment that you create for those mental health challenges and being accommodating when you can. And also being really clear about what you offer. Do you offer insurance plans that cover mental health? Are you investing in mental health? Do you offer an EAP? Are you talking about that? Are you putting it in emails? Are you putting it in emails as much as you're putting medical stuff in emails? Are
Mhm.
you talking about it as much as you're talking about like maternity leave? And like really leveling the playing field because often the stigma comes from shying away from it. Like it's not often that someone actually walks by and is like, suck it up, you're fine. It's more often that someone doesn't talk about it. And that becomes a whole source of stigma. And that becomes this like swirling internal narrative of someone being bad because of it or, judging someone because of it. And so I would question founders and encourage them to inquire within themselves and within their companies if they're talking about mental health as much as they're talking about other support systems that they offer. And if they're not, why? Is it because you have internalized stigma? Is it because you're a little bit biased about it? And if so, that's okay, but transition to talking about it more and making it more clear that you do support mental health and you do support mental health efforts from clients or clinicians or whoever to come in and really give your team the support they need.
Yeah, that's a good point. At Ready Artwork, we've done wellness programs, and typically wellness programs are
Mm-hmm.
just we have a yoga instructor or we have a
Mm-hmm.
chiropractor come in, that help adjust us. But for companies looking to provide more meaningful, like mental health support to employees, what approaches actually makes a difference beyond like the surface level wellness programs?
Yeah, I think insurance is one of the biggest things that a company can do, like investing in insurance for mental health. We take insurance in intentional spaces. Most of our clients use insurance because it's expensive. And even
Mhm.
if you have a good job, chances are you probably don't want to pay for it because you don't know if it's going to be worth it. If you've never been to therapy before, you don't know this person. And so investing in insurances that cover mental health really well and being very clear about that, giving your company the information they need about what it means to be covered under this insurance and giving them the resources to be able to do that. And also bringing people in to speak about it, bringing therapists in, bringing people who know what they're talking about to do, one group therapy session or do like a series of them or do like a seminar about it and give information about how to find other therapists. What does it mean to have a good fit? What does it mean to go into therapy for the first time and demystifying some of these things? Because I think there's so much kind of backlog
Mhm.
of ideas about what therapy is and isn't. And we talk about it a lot. We talk about logistics of it. We talk about what this means. We kind of demystify all of that. And we say, okay, here's your insurance portal. It's a link. You found a massage therapist. You can find a therapist too.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, humanize it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's touch a little bit about you as a business woman and a founder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do you grow a business like Intentional Spaces and where the work is deeply personal and emotionally demanding? And
Mm-hmm.
it's been a journey for the last 10 years for you. How is that like?
Yeah, it is. It is deeply personal and very emotional. I think that's a good way to describe it, certainly. I think I let it be deeply personal. Like I let it be what it is. Like therapy for me, intentional spaces for me, founding this company could never not be deeply personal. I care about it a lot, and that's okay. And I think there is this idea that you can be like estranged from your work or you don't want to be too invested in your work. You want to have a work-life balance. And yes, certainly all of those things are true. And also I care about it a lot. And I just let myself care about it and recognize when it's overwhelming me, recognize when it's too much, recognize that this is something that I want to invest a lot in and have invested a lot emotionally in. And I think in the same breath, I also try to remember that there are going to be ups and downs. There are going to be iterations. Like it is building a business and it's building a company. And if you're a founder, like many of your listeners are, like it's hard. Some days you're like, what am I doing? Why am I even here? And I think recognizing that ultimately that like my heart is still there. And that's kind of what's central to the company. And I often go back to our mission statement or to some of our like branding stuff that we did in the early days and think about, okay, why am I actually here? What am I doing? What difference am I making? Am I personally aligned with our mission? Am I personally aligned with what I want to be doing here? And that really centers me on the work that I'm doing. It has been a long time coming. I always say intentional spaces was inevitable. I think I didn't always have the name. I didn't always have the LLC, right? But it was inevitable. And it's been something I've dreamed about for many, many years. And so I have a litany of things I can go back to: journal entries, branding documents, all of these things. And when I look back through them, I just remember how far I've come. And I think that that also really helps me put it into perspective that, yeah, there's always further to go. There's always someone ahead of you and above you. That's just going to be the case probably forever. But if we look back and take a second to put in perspective and see how far we've come, we're also able to see that, yeah, we've also made it quite a ways. And we are centered on the mission and we are serving more people than we were going to if we were just one person. And I think that for me is really fulfilling and gives me the motivation and the grounding to continue to move forward on the really hard days.
Mhm. I love the name Intentional Spaces, by the way.
Thank you. Thank
Great
you.
name. Yeah.
This is one thing I thought about for a really long time, just like everything else.
Yeah. Okay, so looking ahead, what's next
Mhm.
for you and Intentional Spaces? Are there any new projects or visions that you're excited about?
Yeah, I'm excited about all of it. I think, yeah, looking forward for the next like 2 years, we're looking to scale more and hire some more clinicians. We have some really skilled clinicians right now. We speak 4 languages among us, do a lot of different trauma work. We have like a really cool, robust team, and we're looking to build that team a bit more. We've like kind of fine-tuned some of our hiring practices, fine-tuned some of our onboarding stuff. And so we're really looking to expand that clinical team. And we're also looking to implement some like mid-level management. So some more like team structures, some more promotions, some more bringing new people on who can do more strategic planning, things like that, which I think is a step that founders often find themselves in, where you're like, okay, my hand is in all of this, and now my hand has to be a little bit less in all of it because it's getting a little bit too big for just me. And so I see us growing into certainly more like leadership roles within the team internally, leadership roles that we might bring in from external folks. I also see us growing to do some in-person stuff. We really want to do events for other clinicians, other healers around Seattle, because like you said, it's pretty isolating, especially being in telehealth. So I would love to see us being able to do some events, hosting some talk spaces, hosting some seminars for folks to come in and just connect and mingle. And I would also love to see us do some trainings with our folks, with our therapists we have, do retreat, do like give back to them in some way, bring them into Seattle again for a weekend, because I think giving back to our community and building them up is one of the biggest ways to provide really incredible client care and align us around the mission.
Yeah, I think that's great. As much as I love virtual, I think there's also a need for in-person events. There's a demand there as well.
Certainly.
Love it. Okay, I have one last question for you, Liz. What is your favorite tool or software that you find essential to your day-to-day work? And this is a question I ask all my guests.
Yeah, I'm like looking at my desk right now and I'm like, wow, I have like 7 things that I use every day. I would say the software that we use most is called Simple Practice. It's an electronic health record, and all of our client data goes through that. It's HIPAA secure. All of our video goes through there. All of our client documentation, all of our scheduling, like it is the pivot point in our practice. And we use it every day for all the things. And if we didn't have Simple Practice, I don't know what we would do. I mean, I think especially with telehealth, it's really necessary that we adhere to all the HIPAA guidelines and that we have like systems that we can really trust and rely on, and have systems that we feel confident in ultimately, and that our clients can feel confident in too. It's pretty streamlined. It's pretty easy. We have our billing in there as well. And I would say if we didn't have that, we would be in a pretty rough spot.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, well, thank you, Liz, for sharing your journey and insight with us today. Your dedication to creating a compassionate and sustainable therapeutic environment is truly amazing. For our listeners, if you want to learn more about Liz's work and Intentional Spaces Psychotherapy, head over to intentionalspaces.com. And Liz, for anyone who wants to connect with you directly, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, if you want to connect with me directly, Instagram is probably the best way. It's at Your Honest Therapist, or you can connect with our Intentional Spaces Instagram at Intentional Spaces Healing.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Raw Spotlight. She's got hustle. Until next time, and keep hustling and stay inspired. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.